Gente, obrigado por ter vindo. Sei que é difícil a gente estar aqui às 9 da manhã. Infelizmente, muita gente não deu, mas thank you. Vamos fazer uma prece inicial rapidinho, então. Agradecer a Jesus, nosso Divino Mestre, por mais esse dia na nossa existência, por mais essa oportunidade que todos nós temos de aprender, de buscar nos melhorar. Pedimos, Senhor, que o Senhor nos inspire a todos, auxilie o nosso entendimento, fortaleça cada vez mais a nossa boa vontade. E também rogamos que o Senhor possa abençoar a todos os nossos irmãos que não puderam comparecer hoje ou que estão a caminho da nossa reunião. Graças a Deus que assim seja. Okay, so this is week 3. It's going fast, right? It's going really fast. It feels like we met yesterday. So one of the things that I personally feel quite challenged is that this is as an extensive subject, right? To condense those lessons in 1 hour and a half, it's quite challenging. So, I really want to hear from you today your thoughts on how things are going, right, against expectations. Just before I let you share your thoughts. So these are the items that we set as expectations for us on March, right, on the first session. So during the last 2 sessions, we kind of covered most of this. I know we didn't spend enough time on PowerPoint just yet, but we kind of touched on a few things. Especially in the last meeting, we discussed quite a bit about the introduction, body, conclusion, some of the tips about this one. So today we are certainly talking about the items in green here, right? About staying on the topic, relying more on knowledge, also complementing the preparation, techniques not to only know the Spiritism, but how to do that research, source of data, things like that. So that's what we are going to discuss today, right? So from your point of view, guys, how things are going for you, how effective it is or has been for you. Being really open and honest, because that's a chance that we can to change the future meetings, right?
Well, I have just 2, right? 2 sessions. The first one was kind of setting the stage for the rest. But so 5 things have been good. I think the exercise that we preparing ourselves at home, I think it's really good. For 1 minute is a challenge, 2 minutes is still a challenge.
Yes.
To prepare something, but I think in my opinion, I think we have been covering things that is important for us to know, and get prepared for the lectures. I like it. I really enjoy it.
Anyone else?
Unfortunately, I missed meeting number 2.
Missed, yes.
But I think the most important thing is for sure the prepare for 1 minute or 2 minutes. That's the key for me, I think.
Yeah. There are a couple of videos on Facebook. Not sure if you took a look, but we discussed quite a bit about them. Some of the what not to do, some of the what to do. Okay. Anyone else?
Well, personally for me, so far, what I think that is actually more important is the evaluation form. That was my personal, that I think it is interesting because it has a lot to do with on the goal when we are there in the reality of, giving the lecture and receiving right away the feedback, going home and see how the things work. I think for me it was a very important thing because it had a very practical application in when we are here together with the people. For me, that was the point that was more valuable so far.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks, Jared. Appreciate it. Okay, so today we're not going to read all the books that we have here, but we're going to talk a little bit about research, right? So before we introduce that topic, we obviously have our homework to do, right? And I'm not going to do any bloopers, I promise. But it's time for us, and the idea with this exercise, as we discussed last week, right? We discussed about how to engage the audience, right? Not only how to prepare, but how to engage the audience. Eye contact, body language with gestures. Being prepared to use a lectern, and today we're not going to use a lectern. If you go to any Spiritist center in Toronto, we don't have it, right? Telling a story and catching the attention is something that we discussed is quite important. So that's why we picked the subject about telling a story today. And why about the 2 minutes or 1 minute, which is extremely challenging. We don't have lectures of 1 minute and 2 minutes, but it really forces us to start practicing the habit of timing us, because it helps us to feel more comfortable when we are here in our lectures, right? Obviously for 45 minutes, 1 hour, but it's still recommended that we time ourselves, right? So when we are here, we don't need to be worried about, am I going to have enough time or I'm going to be over time? You practice, you know your content already. And going back to the point of feeling more comfortable and less nervous, the more you know before what's going to happen, the more comfortable you feel. You've done that already, right? So that's why you guys have been forced, nobody's forced, but we encourage you guys to participate and do this, 1-2 minutes challenge, right? So we are recording, again, I'll split the videos and send it to all of you individually later on. Just need a volunteer to start.
That's it.
Excellent. Thank you so much for participating. Any comments out of this?
I have a question.
Yes.
Maybe I gave a wrong comment to Tiago. I thought it would be personal experience.
It could be
Personal
any kind of
story.
story. Any kind of story. Could be can be personal. Could be from a book.
Okay, so
It just had to
Tiago,
be a story.
please delete
You
my
know-
comment. Ignore
No,
my comment.
I do get what you said, and I thought about doing that just here
Oh,
in,
you read already.
in the instruction.
No delete. No try back.
I would never forget that.
No, I do understand. It is, I try to get something that illustrates a moral principle. That's when it was written, I went for the moral. I
No,
tried
I
to go more
understand.
for
I
the.
just thought it would be.
How about we do a quick round call here, and
Oh, that's
I'd
cool.
like to ask you guys for 2 things very quickly on what did you think about the exercise for preparing about it and delivering it here, and 2 things that maybe caught your mind and said, wow, it's an interesting learning. So, start this way, Charlie.
The first one is not having that.
How did you feel?
I think that is interesting because it changes a lot from the preparations. So it forces you a little bit to really, because you are exposed, in fact, So then it forces you to get rid of that.
Yeah.
For
Exactly.
asking for better? For asking
No,
for
it is for better.
Good.
Because in fact you need to bring from you
Yeah.
the content. Because if you prepared and if you read and if you studied, you will translate something that comes from you. So it becomes a little more personal. You
Yes.
take more ownership of the story. And I think that's a very positive thing. That's a great exercise. And it makes it easy when we have that again.
Especially for storytelling, right?
And the little baby came.
Yeah.
And then the bear came.
Right. So if you were there stuck,
And the baby come.
and then there was the bear, so you lose a lot of content, right?
That's right.
Think about telling a story for the children over there.
You
And I
cannot
think
have
people's
that.
reactions change. That was my feeling as well.
Thank you, Mars.
Well, for me, it was bad not having the podium there because I was prepared to have it and I didn't know what to do with my hands anymore. So I started to cruzar meus braços and I felt bad because what am I gonna do now? With I feel that I knew that it was not right. That
That's
I
a good
shouldn't
learning.
have, and I was expecting to have that.
Good learning. You should always prepare for those different circumstances, right? If you go, so I know you're going to Mississauga, right? They are around the table over there. There's no lectern. You join the others. There's no lectern over there. So we should be prepared, right?
Yeah.
How about if the power goes down? I don't have my PowerPoint. What do I do?
Mm.
Right? So we should be prepared for this. But any other learning other than this one? Just Mars changed this.
Oh, sorry.
Second one.
It's what I said in the beginning. For me, preparing and delivering, comparing to my previous presentations, that I used to have very detailed notes,
Mm-hmm.
and this time I did just a few bullet points,
Yes.
just things to make me remember the steps that I need to go through,
Thank
and
you.
not really the
Just
what
to
I need
remember what we discussed last week, you guys have that template, right, for the introduction, 3 main ideas, and the conclusion, right? And then each idea you can break it down in 3 other ideas. When you write the full content, for example, as you said, when you start practicing and timing yourself, you realize you can get rid of your notes and transform in bullet points because you already memorized some of them. You didn't memorize word by word, but you have the bullet point. That's where we want to be. Because if you memorize word by word and you forget one word, you get that blank. You lost your train of thought completely. But if you have the bullet point, you take a quick look at the story of the bear. Okay.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then you continue with your own words. You improvise on the fly, but you know what you want to say. Right? That's the interesting thing. Thank you. Isha?
I didn't this today, but our past experience without the
Lecture.
the body, it's more hard because you need prepare more because you can't hold your paper and look all the time the same you did there, you know, because there you how to say it's
Protected.
yes,
Yeah.
very
It is.
protected.
Yeah, there's security.
And here force us to
Yeah.
be more to be
more
prepare
active,
more, yeah.
engaging.
and not getting boring the audience.
Yes.
You know, it's
That's where we want to be as well, right?
Yeah.
So, good wake-up call for us on the dangers of the podium and the lecture. It can be quite boring, and once you are here, it's way more engaging, to the point you forget to time people.
like it's the same our life, and then getting the comfort zone
Yeah.
here because when you not have this,
Yeah.
what can I do now?
Exactly.
You know, it's a good experience.
Livia,
More time.
you need more time?
No, I think it was better that you gave us more time because
Yes.
last time when you gave us a minute,
Yeah.
we were all like, oh my gosh, when is it gonna end? Are we almost at the end? Or is it how many more minutes do I have?
Yeah.
How long do I have? And then with 2 minutes, you know, okay, I have a lot of time this time, so I have more time to.
Yeah, because stories you require more time to engage people, right? Anything else? Any learning that you had with this exercise?
Same with the plugin.
Uh-huh.
It's, to me, I thought it was better without it because when I was there the last time, it's like, okay, I can't let my gestures go. I'm just
Yeah.
like, okay, I
Good.
can't do anything. It's not-
Good. And often we think the opposite, right? We prefer it over there because we feel more comfortable. Good.
And I love the way that she used her gestures
Yes.
to tell the story. It was amazing.
Yes.
Wow.
Luis,
To learn about
Yes, it was a good learning, and I think the best part, I felt more comfortable because I wasn't stuck in the podium,
yes.
but at the same time, I missed the time. I was so comfortable that I forgot
Yeah.
to be aware about the timing. But I think that's the best way to do a presentation
Yeah.
because it doesn't sound like informal. It sounds like more interactive
Yes.
with everybody. So I think that's the main point, being there and that helped me to stay calm
Yeah.
instead of being there. Like
Yeah.
I felt a little bit imprisoned.
You really want to get to the point where you make your audience feel it's a conversation,
True. Yes.
right? Not a really important point. Oh, homework and class and practice. Yeah, people will just sleep, right?
That's
You are
right, yes.
engaging them, telling a story. They will be looking at you. You're looking at their eyes. You're not da 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 da. That's something we discussed last week as well. So a lot of all the things that we discussed so far, it's all in this 2 minutes here today.
True. And it is way more engaging. For me.
Yes. Oh, sorry, Mariana. Any comments?
No, it's yeah, the same as this.
Thank you.
For me, well, I'm with him and Livia. I like no stadium, no
Uh-huh.
podium, because I feel closer to the people.
Yeah.
Sorry, the people I'm talking to,
Yeah.
and I like that feeling. For sure, you have to be more prepared.
Mhm.
Another thing that I think was a good learning is that, for me, storytelling helps me to avoid the papers for a second, because
Yes.
it's something I related to, and it's just a storytelling, right? So for me, it was easier to not use the paper. So it's a good tool to
Yeah.
really engage at that moment. And yeah, I think that's all.
So that's why we discussed about storytelling last week, and that's why I picked you guys to do a story because it is a very powerful tool. And I try to use stories as much as possible, but it's hard. You guys did an awesome job. But it's really hard. But if we can tell a story or a few stories during our lectures to make our points, you bet people will remember, right? And you engage them. It's not boring. So try as much as you can, right? So today we will talk about a few books full of stories that you can research the stories and tell those stories in your own words, right? There's a lot of good stories here. From my comments, what just happened with Catarina, for example, and I had to watch everybody else, right? I was so engaged in the story, I forgot completely what I had to do with my job. That's the power of a story. We really don't want to be in the point that we are reading a PowerPoint, guys. We are losing the audience. And then they will be there. Oh man, I'm doing a horrible job with my lecture. And we are looking at the audience, we see people sleeping, right? And we start beating ourselves. It's not you, it's the way, it's that lecture, the way we prepared, and we are not engaged. And sometimes we'll have people that no matter what you do, they come to the Spirit Center to sleep, right?
You can dance on the...
So yeah, you can dance and do whatever you want.
Right?
However, we can do those kind of stuff to minimize that, right? And it really helps. It really catches people's attention, old, children, anyone, right? That's the overall comment for all of you. You did an awesome job, and I hope this illustrates the power of stories and encourage you guys to use stories, right? Going back to the PowerPoint, this is one example. We don't want to be dependent on the PowerPoint completely. You want the PowerPoint to support your story. So if you want to tell a story, you can put a picture, and then you tell a story about that picture. But reading bullet by bullet, that's very boring. You lose your audience, right? So in the next encounters, we will be talking about some of the tips about PowerPoint. But the final question before we move on. How can we make the lectern or the podium feel more like we are here without it?
I've been asking that myself, I don't know.
Anyone want to take a shot?
Well, for me, there is two things. If we know now, this is a good experience for us, because if we know now that instead of writing everything like I have done before, I can bring important points, and even if I leave them there, because it might be important for me to remind a couple of things, or to remind a couple of elements that I might need to say, because 45 minutes or an hour is a lot, we might miss a little bit. But one thing that I always felt is just the setup doesn't let us go around. Could I be talking and then suddenly I would leave that place because the camera is there. We need to be there, right?
Yeah.
But if we are, well, I can walk one or two or three steps and I am interacting and then I'm coming back and then I point out there is some, so now I can use this as my reference. I can come back here as my kind of safe place, and I think it is important to have a safe place. No worries, this is an important place. But then from here we go somewhere else.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But the camera and the
have our
microphone
camera,
don't let us.
The microphone is fine. The camera, we can just move it around. I was about to say that, right? If we have enough room here that you guys can even come to the side without any harm. But if you want to move around, we can move the camera, right? But that's what I was about to say, right? Don't get attached to it. You know, pretend that you have here for your papers or your laptop and you move around, but you can use your gestures. You can move to the side, you can move to the front, right? Just don't drop the microphone on the floor. But you can step back a little bit. You can go to the front. So pretend it's not here. But I love your comment, thank you. That's what we want to be, right? You can move aside. And if you see some people on the internet, they have broader space for the camera so that people can come to the side. And we definitely can start doing that, right? We just need to adapt the camera. And if you do it, you don't worry about it because we will take care of it. The camera just moves around. Right? So it's a good point, very good point.
As an example, the camera could be behind the camera guy because it can go up. And it can just be a little. You see that just being here today we saw this morning how much more you can see one step, like 1
Yeah.
meter back, how much more you can see, right?
Yeah. So we're improving gradually, but one piece of mind for you, if you ever want to move, just move, right? Just start slowly so we can move the camera with you. But yeah, I love the idea. That's a great point. And even if you are here, right, if you go to a place where you can't move for some reason, you're stuck in that little place or they have the camera on you, pretend you're not there, right? You can walk around, but you can just move and not be attached over there. Like you were like this, right? Or all the time like this. We discussed a few things last week, but about the podium, that's the tip for us. Let's move around.
I would like to share just quickly
Please.
experience. When I started here for doing lectures, it was my first day. It's the first day with the podium too. And I felt the same. I walk around the podium and I remember, oops, I need to come back. And I'm completely lost on this time because I never used that before. I just used it on front the same we did today, and I'm completely lost. I jump around, not around, but I jump over the podium and say, oops, I need to come back.
Yeah.
No, but is that the same point you told me? You don't need to be stuck on the podium. You can move and adjust all the things.
Especially if you see someone sleeping, you walk their way.
Yeah, and for the second time, when I used the podium, I felt stuck. I said, Michelle, don't move. You need to stay here.
It's weird.
Yeah, and I say it was a good experience for me.
Guys, thank you. Great points. Great points. So let's move on. We have exactly half an hour to get to the core of today. So I was about to start by reading the chapter 14 of the Daily Bread, and the lesson is called Pages. It's about the books that we read. So I'll post it on the Facebook, and you guys can read in Portuguese or English. But it basically says, be careful with what you are reading, right? Because the books are written by people like us, right? There's obviously psychography work done by spirits. Those who already studied the medium's book, we know that the nature of the spirits, can be very different. So whenever we are reading to learn something or to teach something, it's very important that we pay attention. What is the kind of knowledge that I'm reading, right?
Source.
The source. What kind of source? So we're going to talk about it right here. But I really want you guys to take that as part of homework to read. I'm not going to do that right now, but the whole point is be careful with the source. So I have a diagram here. I said, I have a diagram here.
Maybe not.
Thank you, Katarina.
There you go.
Eat there.
You do have it.
You like me? So just a few tips or recommendations for doing our research and for delivering it as you guys just deliver your story. So I'm going to start clockwise here, right? Remember the slow cooker and the microwave, that ideally, that's the ideal scenario. Unfortunately, it's not always easy to do. I'll share the slide later on this. Okay. Start gathering your ideas, your thoughts, taking lessons from one book, the other book, put it all together and, leave it there sitting for a day and go back there, and then something happens on the street with you or at work, on the plane, you bring that story to your lecture, right? So that's why we say, cook your lecture on a slow cooker for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, not on the microwave the day before, right? I don't like doing that, but sometimes we got caught and we do like 2 days in advance. It's not good enough. And the audience sees that because we don't engage them enough. We have to read, we have to rely on PowerPoint because we do in a rush. So go for the slow cooker, right? Something you missed last week, but that's in a nutshell what it is. Avoid the, I think reincarnation. Well, I believe reincarnation is, my wife who, lived or who met that person who lived with Chico Xavier told me that Chico told her neighbor that reincarnation is, oh my gosh, there's no credibility. There's no credibility. I think, I heard, I believe, Well, I guess, right? Oh, question and answer right now. So, what happens when someone is sick? Is because it's it's defined previously reincarnated. Oh, I guess it's not a good place to be, guys. We don't want to be there, right? That's why complementing here. If we don't know, we must say we don't know. I'm not sure. I don't want to give you wrong information. So I'll take that away. If you come next week, I'll share that, or I'll share on the internet with the website. We'll do something to give you that information, but I don't want to give you the wrong information. So if you don't know, we don't know, right? So very careful with this. And sometimes we catch ourselves in this position. I think if you don't know, you don't know, right? That's why research is so important. And some of you did, well, yeah, not everybody because of the nature of your stories, but those who used some references, you guys gave the references. So this is very important, right? Comments so far? The other one here, stick to the theme of your lecture. It's very easy for us to start talking about forgiveness, right? Forgiving the offenses to the point that we can help people and do charity, even if we have a resentment, right? And then charity, and then you go to the pathway of charity and helping the homeless and preparing the food and tell the story about the food bank and right? And the forgiveness is behind, right? We've completely forgot the forgiveness, right? So stick to the theme, and that's why practicing and reviewing the structure, preparing in advance helps you to see if you're going off track or not. If you're going off track, bring it back. If during the Q&A session, people start asking questions too off of your topic, and you were not prepared, you will feel uncomfortable, obviously, you better bring that. That's an important question. It's not related to the subject here, and I don't want to guess, so I'll get back to you on that one. Or especially if you are in a time crunch, right? If you have time, you can take, but if not, and if you're not prepared, you can say, well, that's a long answer for you. It's not related to the topic, so we can talk offline about this one. But most importantly, within your lecture, don't go off track, right? And sometimes during the lectures, people start to asking questions or bringing their own points of view. Sometimes there's conversation. If the audience is driving you off track, bring them back. So, oh, that's a very good point. But just make sure we cover the topic for today, which is forgiveness. We'll have a separate conversation on that one later on. You have to guide the audience. Otherwise, sometimes the audience may take you off track. Right? Mention your sources and references. Right? We posted a video about Chico Xavier on the Pinga Fogo on the previous event, right? And he was talking about divorce and mentioning the laws and everything, right? He was bringing a solid base and building his reputation. It's not only talk about a spiritist medium, but as a citizen who knows the law of his country, right? So the same thing with us. If we are talking about something, you better mention the reference. Oh, according to Emmanuel, the book X, lesson X, or the Spiritist book question X. Even if we have to read, right? It's hard to memorize. Even if we have to read, we keep the reference. So if you have a PowerPoint, maybe you have a picture in the PowerPoint, you put a little reference over there, right? It gives you that base, that credibility.
Can I just mention one good, in my opinion, one good example of when you are mentioning sources, when it is difficult for us to just memorize.
Yeah.
One good person that does that is Haroldo. Because Haroldo can bring a book and he can talk the entire time mentioning. But he tells one phrase and he can talk half an hour about that phrase.
Exactly.
But he has the reference in front of him and still he can transcend that and capture and bring the other elements, but based on what he's talking about.
And we discussed about this last week as well, right? Is that okay to bring a book and read from the book? Well, as long as we're not just reading I can do it at home.
And doesn't develop.
Haroldo is an example. There's a video we posted from Haroldo doing exactly this, right? And we can see he reads a little passage and then he will spend 5-10 minutes talking about it, and then he continues. There's nothing wrong with it, right? He continues to engage people, and then he throws a story on it. Right? Good point, Jeff. Be careful, internet. There's a lot of stuff. Oh, Chico Xavier said this. An apple a day keeps your doctors away. Chico Xavier, André Luiz. And then we take that beautiful image and put our PowerPoint, and we come here. Oh, this is what Chico said. Oh, what book is that written? I don't know. I took it from the internet. There's all sorts of things on the internet, right? So you gotta be careful. So sometimes when I see something, oh, this is a beautiful image, a beautiful passage from Chico. Is it really? So I take that passage, I Google that word, right? An apple a day keep your doctors away, and you have a lot of stuff. But Chico Xavier PDF, and usually brings within the PDF, you'll bring you the PDF. So okay, it's here, it's correct, or even take the book and say yes, okay, so it's fair to use it. So Google is just a great tool, right? If you see a phrase from someone, you can Google that phrase and you bet will bring you the topics and sometimes even the PDF where it is. So be very careful. We don't want to be blindsided with internet. I've seen stories from Chico that I saw, hey, this isn't that book. And I took the story. The story is 2 pages and they picked just one passage and some of the words are confused and tricky, right? So although it's from the book, people just shorten and change the wordings. It's dangerous, right? So be very careful with internet. So you see, it takes a lot of time to prepare if we want to do it in the right way. You can just take a PowerPoint from someone, okay, it's a PowerPoint about reincarnation, I'm wrong with it. Are we really confident? That's why I really don't like to use PowerPoint from others. Sometimes even Michelle, I have a lecture. So you build based on the way you deliver your lecture, the way you prepare, and we have different styles, right? And sometimes if you just use a PowerPoint from someone, you feel completely uncomfortable because it's not your style, right? Research within the core Spiritist book. So you see the lesson that I mentioned to you guys as a homework. But research within the books, and I have this for you, I'll show you in a minute. But research within the core Spiritist book, we will see them, until we have enough discernment to start wandering around and go to other authors. Right? So I have been studying Spiritist for a while, and I still stick to it. That's a personal preference. Anyone can read any book and use any kind of book you want. Just, remember what we just said over here, right? In this lesson particularly. Analyze, don't take it for granted, don't swallow without thinking, right? It's the whole rational fate. It's very important, right? It's our safety net. But, until we have that discernment, stick to Allan Kardec, Chico Xavier, the Gospel, a few others. Only on those you have 700 books easily. And even if you want to read 700 books in our lifetime, it's not going to make it. Not at this stage. So very important. We'll talk more about it. Start getting ideas and topics. Do not start with your PowerPoint. Again, don't take a PowerPoint from the internet and trying to learn the PowerPoint to tell your story. It's the wrong way to do it. What do I want to do? I want to talk about charity. So there's this lesson, there's this story, or this happens to me. Start putting your thoughts together, the structure, the spine of your lecture. From that on, you can think about adding an image, creating a slide for it. Don't do the other way around, right? It's like implementing a software in a company, expecting the whole company to change because of the software.
Yes.
Yes, it's a recipe for disaster, right?
Sure.
IT talk here. So don't put yourself as a speaker in your lecture within someone else's PowerPoint or even your own PowerPoint. It's the other way around, right? The PowerPoint needs to work for you, not you work for PowerPoint. And that's why we see people reading, because they are not comfortable with their lecture. They don't have a lecture. They have a set of PowerPoints, and they will read the set of PowerPoint. We will lose the audience, right? So this is just for us to have a north of recommendations over here. Any comments before we move?
That's great. Great points.
Good.
I do like the aspect of the core Spiritist books.
Yeah.
We talked about that in our planning meeting in the beginning of the year, because in fact we have a role here that is very important. We are responsible to really, diffuse the Spiritism, which is already something challenging in many different ways. And even though there are so many good things that happen in the world, they are being done in different places as well with some coherence.
Yeah.
That we need to have the coherence with the Spiritism here as well, right? And I think
Exactly.
that's the point. If we don't have those references, in my opinion, it might give the wrong impression, especially for those who come here
Yeah.
wanting to know and they don't know,
Exactly.
and they are kind of.
Yeah, remember, we are not at our home or at the Starbucks talking to a friend about what we think, what we believe, and the friend, it's an informal conversation. We are here representing the Toronto Spirit Society. More than that, we are representing Spiritism and the teachings of Jesus, right? And how the two come together. We cannot mess up. Right? We need to do our homework very well. This is very serious, right? Please, thank you. So I prepared this diagram for you guys. Again, if you are a beginner, like I feel I am a beginner, I will stick to the core, which is Allan Kardec, Chico Xavier, and the Gospel of Jesus. And there is a few other recommendations afterwards. You are free, anyone is free to go after any posts, right? I'm really telling the way I do, the way I learn, and a recommendation if you are a beginner like me, okay? So, trying to explain this complex chart here. So these are the books from Allan Kardec, and people usually say the 5 books of Allan Kardec, which is very pity, right? Because there are more than 20. If you only pick the Spiritist magazine, which is an amazing source of information and stories and learning, you have 12 books. They just translated 2 to English, which is great news, just this past month, 1958, 1959. So there is a version in English already. Then you have What's the Spiritism? Posthumous work, amazing book. I haven't seen in English yet. Obras Póstumas in Portuguese, right? The Gospel that we know, Medium's book, Spirit's book, Heaven and Hell, Genesis, Spiritism's simplest expression, and I even left a few others aside, which is the Allan Kardec strips, the collection of prayers, and there's a few other small booklets, right? So that's the core. And then obviously, we have Chico Xavier with more than 500 books. I just placed a few over here for you because here's the interesting thing for research. Some of those books, they actually study each other, right? They cover each other. For example, okay. So, the Gospel according to the Spiritus. There are 3 amazing books from Chico. Livro da Esperança. If it's in Portuguese, it's because it's not in English, okay? O Espírito da Verdade, Opinião Espírita. The 3 of them, they study the Gospel according to the Spiritism. So you actually open the book and you see a passage from the Gospel according to Spiritism. Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 10, item 5. So if you are ever in a lecture about a chapter of the Gospel according to Spiritism, you can scan these books and have a second reference about the chapter you are going about to study. And maybe a story, right? So you don't need to be stuck to the Gospel only. You can go to those books and get an extra source of information for you, which is referencing back to the exactly chapter, sometimes the item. If you pick the Medium's book, Opinião Espírita, for example, studies a few chapters and items from the Medium's book. So the same thing, right? If you're talking about one particular item, you have 2 books studying the same content. The Spiritist book, you have Opinião Espírita, that has information about both. Religião dos Espíritos. And the Spiritist book was supposed to be called Religião dos Espíritos, by the way. Yeah. It's on the posthumous work in Spirits magazine, the story about it. And the Vida e Sexo, I also study the Spiritist book. So you have André Luiz series, there are 16 amazing books, right? From stories and the novels, right? So romances. And the Emmanuel collection, which is an amazing collection as well. So 2 major, there are many books here, I'm just consolidating, but is it clear for you guys what those arrows mean?
Yes.
Yeah? Now, why the green? And so the red is just a reference from the red here from Allan Kardec, right? So it's Allan Kardec works going to Chico Xavier's vice versa. The green is because I just picked the Gospel, right? The Gospel is the center, is the core of Spiritism. So there are these books from Chico Xavier that they study the verses of the Gospel, right? They go to Matthew 1 versicle 25. So all of them, Living Spring, The Way, the Truth, the Light, or Daily Bread, Vinha de Luz, I don't know if there's a translation already. I don't think so. And Palavras de Vida Eterna. Right? So all of them make references to the books and the gospel and the chapters and verses. So great source of information. It all goes to the gospel according to Spiritism and goes to those other books. So if you start from here, you can have those references if you use the verses from the gospel, and you can also go to those other books. So very easy way for us to start digging around, right, to get more information. Any questions here?
I just want to say, my last presentation here, it's last Sunday, I didn't base specifically on the core, but it was based on a very Spiritist book. Everything I put on that slide came from the book. And I talked to I was surprised when I read the book, first of all. So it seemed like a not Spiritist for some people. I got comments saying that it was not a Spiritist presentation, which I really was like kind of sad. And that's why I really wanted that video and I started to watch that.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. I think I
It's
screwed
okay,
up
it's
on
not
that
your
one for
fault.
some reason.
I wanted her to watch it because I understand you have to do that. But it was a book signed by Emmanuel. It had a letter from Emmanuel. Had, I don't know, it wasn't Spiritist. So for me, it was a little bit, I wasn't comfortable after when I got the comments. And now you're saying that, I'm kind of...
Again, I'm going to repeat myself. If you have enough discernment to go out of this, we are free, right? So our free will, as long as we have the analysis to do it. My personal preference is me, Marcus Diclei. I don't go very far from this one. I will give you more other books, but I'm not saying this is the law.
I understand
This is
it should
absolute.
be, maybe I should put more topics on that. But I don't know, it's my...
I think that
My style-
The book that you based your presentation was not a Spirit's book?
I got comments saying it was not Spiritist.
So what is the book?
Dr. Jesus. So it was about
Who wrote
diseases
this?
and José Carlos de Luca.
Okay.
And I hear him a lot. I asked Sandra actually if I could talk. And because there was a message from Emmanuel, and there was Bezerra de Menezes wrote the preface. So I was like, this I can follow this book because of that.
Yeah.
Even though it was not super core with Spiritist.
Yeah, I
So
haven't
maybe
seen,
we should
I haven't
discuss
seen
that.
anything
I want
wrong
to
there,
discuss that with
Catalina.
Sandra.
Yeah, leave it alone. Okay, go ahead.
And may I make a comment, because I think there is another point that I think is important for everyone. It's not necessary, and that is this for me. That is one second point. Sometimes we might have all those references, and if we don't deliver them in a way that we are gonna have that connection for the audience, then I might get into the same thing. Doesn't matter what I bring here.
Yeah.
But if I don't make that connection in a more clear way to really point that out, I will bring the gospel according to Spiritism, and they will not understand that I'm talking about
Exactly.
Allan Kardec. I will bring the gospel here, and they might not even understand that that story came from the New Testament, for instance. And it has to do with that as well. Sometimes the way that we deliver, that we point that out, and we make sure that connection has been made. That becomes important as well.
That's why we need time, right? Because we need to put it all together in a logical sequence that makes sense, right? Okay, moving forward here. This is all about storytelling, right? So all these books, unfortunately, I don't think there are any in English just yet. So there's translation work to be done, right? But there's the green flags are from Humberto de Campos, also known as Brother Access. He used the pseudonym, and Neo Lucio, right? Those two. So great source of story for us. So I brought the books here if you guys want to scan a little bit later on. We have here the TSS obviously.
I think that's Jesus at home.
Yeah.
Jesus no ar.
Jesus,
Jesus,
We don't have
that.
that we
Thank
use
you.
for the
Yeah.
reason.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the one.
And I think Boa Nova as well.
Which one? Boa
Boa
Nova?
Nova. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Other authors, right? So Leon Denis, Divaldo, obviously Haroldo. There's obviously more. I just put a few over here. Just want to say it's not an absolute thing.
Yeah.
It's a recommendation if we are beginning, right? Until we are able to have that discernment.
because the next ones are actually very complicated because they develop a lot of the first ones, like José Herculano Pires.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can read it, it is incredible, but it is complicated because they are already developing, in fact. They are already a second step, right?
Exactly. Few notes here. More than 500 books from Chico. So this is not an exhaustive list, but just to tell how many sources we can have. I love those books. This is personal. Okay, a few essentials for me. The Green Light, it's here. O Consolador, e Família e Conduta Espírita, right? Amazing books, lots of important sources data. And the Old Testament, we don't want to neglect the Old Testament, right? If we are able to pick some, topics from the Old Testament, there's a lot of wisdom and valuable learnings over there. Okay. And thank you. Oh, I screwed up here. I screwed your job up now.
Sorry.
Oh, my bad. The definitions. That's crazy. I gotta finish quickly. Okay. I will send this to you guys. Just a few reference to the internet. Okay. Some websites for you. There is a website with pretty much all the books from Chico Xavier in PDF, so you can just download it, right? You don't need to buy all those books, obviously. When you can, you buy. Before I show you something, homework for next week. Homework for next week, it is written for you at the back of your package, right? Okay. So if you have questions, we can certainly talk on Facebook. Okay. But I want to show you something very quickly here, just to illustrate for you. Let me see if this is going to work. I'm going to pretend that I'm doing... Good morning. I'm going to pretend I'm going to do a little research here. And I did this very quickly at the end of the day. Is this going to work? Oh, you can read it anyway, right? It's too small. No. Can we make this full screen or not? Oh, that's a shame. Anyway, let's see if you can take a look. See over there? So I'm talking about the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 17, item 1. So there is over there a passage from Matthew 5:44. Right. So what I can do on this book, Living Spring, from that little series over there, there is also a reference, unfortunately, only in the Portuguese version. I mean, Fonte Viva. I'm messing things up. So if you go to the end of the book, you see, there is actually an index. I can go for Matthew. Let's find it here. Matthew 5:44. Matthew 5:44. Right there. And it's telling me that on the book Fonte Viva, page 221, there is a lesson from the manual exactly about that. Oh, Vinha de Luz 93. I'll go to Vinha de Luz 93. Vinha de Luz 93. There you have Matthew 5:44. Right? So you get a reference right there to complement in the second and final one, because we are over time already.
They all talk to each other.
They all talk to each other. So let's do this one. Same chapter 17, moral persons. So I'm on chapter 17, item 3. So what I did exactly the same thing with the other books. I'll take Opinião Espírita. If I go to Opinião Espírita, you see E for Evangelho, chapter 17, item 3. So from that item, moral persons, you have here autocrítica. And I can go to the Spirit of Truth, the Spirit da Verdade. I'll go there also. Letreiros Vivos, chapter 17, item 3. And I also go to Book of Hope, or Livro da Esperança. And if I look right there as well, The Concept of Good, chapter 17, item 3. So for one item that I'm preparing my lecture about the Gospel according to Spiritism, I have 4 books supporting it. Right? So it is a lot of content. And there's no mistakes here. There's no errors here. Right? That's why I suggest that if you are a beginner, you don't need to go off. There's no need for us to go somewhere else. Right? But if you want, everybody is welcome, obviously, to do whatever you feel you have to do for preparing for your lectures, as long as you know the content. Does it help to illustrate, guys? It was very quick, but I just wanted to see.
Makes sense.
Unfortunately, on the Living Spring, they removed that index. And I sent them feedback already. Oh, next edition, put it back, because that's, to me, I love that part of the book, because they help us. Right? Any other comments? We are 3 minutes past the hour. Any questions? Did it help?
A lot.
Yes.
Yes, it's great.
Yeah. Didn't have much time, but the homework, if you go to the last page, actually you don't need to prepare a lecture.
Yay!
But I want you to do a research based on what we learned today, right?
No, speak next time.
Well, you are going to come here.
I will participate
Yay!
in this one.
So I want you to come here and just tell what is the topic that you picked, what was the research that you did, what are the books that you used, and how did you do the research? Because you can go to the internet, Google it, get a PDF, you can follow some of the tips that I gave you here. There are different ways. I want us to share how do we do our research so we can learn from each other. There are many ways to do the research, right?
So we're not going to prepare, but we're going to pretend that we...
Yeah, you come here and just talk about your research, right? So pick a Spiritist topic, any, perform a research across the core Spiritist books to gather the most number of lessons you can, as if you were preparing for your next lecture. Create a list of your references with book title, lesson number, or title and the author, and present your research verbally or using a single slide on PowerPoint. We don't need 10 slides, but 1 slide if you want to show your list and your logic. Access the URLs that I presented to you, and also you can add it there, read the chapter 14 of the Daily Bread, O Pão Nosso, chapter 14. Guys, thank you so much.
Well, thank
I
you.
hope you enjoyed.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for watching.